Okay.
Let's say we have a hospital, right? And in this hospital, we have, let's say, 4 emergency rooms, and all of them are being used for surgeries. Okay. We have scheduled surgeries like cosmetics or, getting work on your internal organs, whatever it is there. And you have the emergency surgeries, right? The ones that come out of nowhere. You can't really plan for the emergencies, but you know they're going to happen.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're a hospital, you have to make sure, especially the ER, emergency room, right? The 100%. Emergencies, they come out of nowhere, right? You're going to plan for these emergencies. It's the same thing with your money.
Yeah, that's
right?
Facts. That's a great example.
What's good, y'all? It's Mikal Settle with Blaise Training, Never Settle. And now I'm super excited because we just got a new training app to service our people. So listen, if you're interested in losing 15 to 20 pounds or even gaining 15 to 20 pounds, this is the opportunity for you to reach out to me so we can start to service you a little better, okay? Now, reach out to me directly or comment your information below, and so we can set up a consultation meeting with you for free. Just gonna be 10 minutes of your time to figure out some of your struggles, some of your goals, and some of the motivation behind your goals so we can start to service you better and move forward in the process to help you reach your fitness goals, okay? And then you never know. You might end up even being here training with me at Aspen Active, all right? I hope to see you guys later, and never settle.
Man, what's good, y'all? Welcome to Mike Motivation Monday. Another great guest on another great day to have a great week. You know, and our great guest, Marlon Ewing. Ewing. My bad.
Everybody messes up.
Yeah, my bad. Marlon Ewing, and I appreciate you being on here.
Yes, sir.
Yep. And so before we kind of dive into learning about his story and then him as far as his mindset, because he has a strong mindset just from the few conversations we've been having and just even today, and like we're going to talk a lot about building wealth, but then the psychology and a lot of the traumas we have behind it. I'm ready to learn, and I'm sure they're ready to learn. And so when it comes to picking a book of the week, I usually try to base it on kind of how the conversations are going to kind of go, and so the book of the week is Black Labor, White Wealth by Dr. Claude Anderson. Got a good view right this. And y'all know this is Dr. Claude Anderson is my favorite author. And so, man, when y'all get a chance, actually not when y'all get a chance, right now, go get this book. Go ahead and get this book.
Knock it out.
And so, yeah, shout out to Dr. Claude Anderson. One day I'm going to meet you.
There you go.
And then, so the quote from the book that really stands out to me, and the quote of the week, I feel like, is the practice of perceiving and acting on issues and events on the social rather than a capitalistic perspective is a major impediment to Black empowerment. And so when you hear that, what kind of comes to mind for you?
Yeah, man. I think a lot of that comes from just the historical standpoint we've had. So in our community there's been so many issues that we've been limited to and access there. So I think of like the Homestead Act of 1862, for example. In that event there, the U.S. government gave a lot of the land that was confiscated for us after the Civil War to former slave owners, right? And they would make sure that they're taken care of and they're good to go. And our people in that event there, after we lost Abraham Lincoln, we lost the 40 acres in the Mule Deal. Their focus was to empower the white people, right? Empower the former owners there. And so what we ended up doing was we had to become, the only thing we knew at the point in time after, 200 plus years of slavery, all you really knew was farming, right? All you knew was agriculture. And a lot of us there at that point in time had to go back to what we knew best. And so what the farmers would do, because we didn't have any land to actually, work on, we had to actually go in there and work for the former slave owners. So not much has really changed in this sense, right? But nonetheless, there the slave owners, or the former slave owners, they would lease out the land, or they would let us go and work the land for them. And this is what became known as tenant cropping or tenant farming, or sharecropping in this sense there. So a lot of us were working at fixed interest rates for financing for their equipment, for the food, the housing, the shelter. We're basically working on the same land that we were supposed to get for ourselves, but it got given back to these people. Right.
Yeah.
And so now we're trying to, get ourselves out of a hole there. We're still getting, 20 to 70% interest on some cases, some of those things we're trying to finance. Right. And so,
No, facts.
I think because of that, we were never really able to overcome a lot of things early in the days there like that. And so that led to the Jim Crow era, that led to segregation, it led to the civil rights era, and to now, so we're dealing with things as it is.
No, that's powerful, bro. That's powerful. And the thing is, it makes me think about is, I feel like now, as far as our perspective on farming, our perspective of our average cowboy farmer is a white male,
right?
And thinking back to the existence of, well, at least United States of America or the 13 colonies, we were the original farmers.
We were, but we were not the original farm owners.
Okay. So break that down.
And so I love what you brought that up there. So when we're thinking of a farmer now, we think of Farmer John Brown or something like that. You know what I'm saying? This big fat white dude with a beard.
Yeah.
And in a lot of cases there, it is true. Like if you ever visit, farmland in Iowa, for example, a lot of them look like that, or they, they're just old white dudes.
Yeah.
But they're the people who own the land. So we were replaced by machinery. Right. All of our work was replaced by us, but a lot of it came from us, creating these efficient ways of doing our job.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of us in slavery there in the time, we were creating ways to make our workload a little bit easier. Yeah. But then they taking our work, take credit for it, copyright it, sell it, and then they manufacture that and just divvy it up to themselves. Right. And
that sounds like the music industry.
It really what it is. And so we never really get credit for our work anyway. Yeah. But it's here nor there. But we were never, I don't say we were never the owners there, but our ownership hasn't increased.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Since back then.
That's facts.
And so now when we think of an owner there, it's the same way when we think of any kind of roles that we think of a president, we think of a doctor there. In most cases, we usually don't see a lot of representation in these fields there for ourselves. Yeah. We're getting better now, but in the last, 20, 30, 40 years there, we just didn't have a lot of representation. Yeah. And so I think it all goes back to that being focused on ownership and trying to make sure we maintain ownership and things there, because we don't really see the value of land ownership and equity because we really haven't had that to experience what it's like. Yeah,
no, that makes sense. And so like one thing you kind of made me think about earlier is you was talking about the tax, how they tax us and the interest rates on things. And so can you kind of break down the importance of, well, actually the difference between, I think you called it a certain type of interest rates, two different types of interest rates as far as
predatory.
Okay. So, like, can you kind of break that down and why to avoid it and lift it up a little bit?
Oh, my bad. And so I was saying that there's the interest rates, like you get from your bank there for, personal loan or your business loans. Okay. And then you have predatory lending. Okay. Right. And so the biggest thing for predatory lending there is payday loans, right? Okay. Or the buy now, pay here car loans or car places, right? Yeah. What a lot of us do is we wait until we get into a jam and we like, we just can't afford this right now. We need something to kind of help us float our expenses until the paycheck comes, and we go and finance our expenses even more. Right. We add an extra 27% on top of our, budget we can't afford right now as it is. Yeah. Right. And a lot of that comes from us just trying to make ends meet, and we don't think about how we can actually get out of that rut. And so I want to give you an example. Okay. Let's say we have a hospital, right? And in this hospital, we have, let's say, 4 emergency rooms, and all of them are being used for surgeries. Okay. Yeah. We have scheduled surgeries like cosmetics or, getting work on your internal organs, whatever it is there. And you have the emergency surgeries, right? The ones that come out of nowhere. You can't really plan for the emergencies, but they're going to happen. Yeah. Right. So if you're a hospital, you have to make sure, especially the ER, emergency room, right? The 100%. Emergencies, they come out of nowhere, right? You're going to plan for these emergencies. It's the same thing with your money.
Yeah, that's right? Facts. That's a great example.
We have to make sure if we're going to have these operating rooms or these categories in our budget, we have to make sure we have an expectance file for things we can't expect to see or we don't know what's going to happen, the variables, right? The miscellaneous. Yeah. If we have our food, our shelter, our utilities, we know we are accounting for these things because they're scheduled, right? But what about the dentist bill coming up because your daughter, broke her tooth, or you have therapy you need to take care of there, or your car breaks down.
Yeah.
These variables that are gonna happen, right? I hate seeing a budget where there's no room in the budget there for the inevitable emergency that's gonna happen. There's gonna be an emergency every single month. Just plan for that.
Yeah.
Now, if we can have that same philosophy of how hospitals do, what hospitals do is they leave one emergency room open, no matter what. No matter what there, you cannot get in the emergency room there unless it's an emergency.
Yeah.
Now, everything else is scheduled out, right? With the same mindset when it comes to our budget, we have to make sure we're leaving one pile of cash or one allocation of cash there for emergencies only.
Okay.
And that's how we have to address these same things going forward, right? Otherwise, we're not being prepared for the inevitable, and then we get set back even further, which is how we get
100%.
these issues with payday loans, right?
Yeah.
Because we haven't prepared for the emergencies that came up there in our budget, or we haven't taken care of the things that we couldn't expect, right? And now we're behind.
Yeah.
But if we're cutting our spending maybe 10, 20% every month and taking that same money and applying that to a savings account, maybe somewhere where we can't go and access the money easily, right?
Yeah.
Let's say you got maybe one bank you go to right now, right?
Yeah.
I work at Chase, right? Let's say you get an account set with me at Chase.
Okay.
And then you go and get another account. Where do you bank right now?
U.S. Bank.
U.S. Bank. Okay. You get a savings account with U.S. Bank. You have a checking account with Chase, right? With your checking account there, you can put all of your budgets, all of your expenses that you normally pay for.
Okay.
And then with U.S. Bank, you will create your savings account. Now, there's no debit card. There's no checking account in your savings account. There's only cash you're going to directly deposit into your savings account when you get paid or when you get a surplus, right? And this way, what it does, it eliminates impulse spending, right?
No quick access.
No quick access. So if you're in line in the store, the mall, whatever, and you see this deal, like, oh man, I gotta have this, but it's not in your checking account, can't get it.
Yeah,
Sorry.
100%. Yeah, and so no, that's facts. And that goes to the psychology and the mindset. And so, I'd like to comment on one thing before I ask you a question. Is I like how you have like the one thing I always like that people say is like you don't know where you're going if you never know where you've been.
Right.
And I feel like for you, understanding history and understanding certain mindsets as far as our mindsets as people when it comes to finances is super essential when it comes to helping people with finances.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us get these financial coaches that really don't understand what it's like when it comes to the mindset of it,
Yeah.
And so I feel like giving you flowers on that and, and saying that's incredible for you,
Yeah.
and that's great for
appreciate that,
real.
bro.
You know what I'm saying? So I feel like that's super important. And then on top of that, my question is, can you talk about the mindset that you kind of noticed not only working at Chase Bank, but then maybe growing up that we have in our relationship with money? Because it's really it's a mindset and spiritual thing when it comes to that.
Yep. So I want to answer your question, but I want to ask you a question before I answer it.
Okay.
Just kind of set the stage for this. Your mom, sister, grandma, any black woman in your family, do they wash their meat?
Yeah, for the most part.
Do you
Some
know
of
why?
them. Maybe
You're
because
not washing it with soap, right?
No, not with soap.
Just
That
water,
shit was
right?
I see somebody do that. That was nasty. Don't wash it with soap. But they don't wash it with soap.
Just wash with water, right?
Yeah.
But if it's raw chicken, water's not going to clean it, right?
Yeah.
So I had to ask my wife, my mom, my auntie, everybody. I was like, where y'all get this from? And it's always my mama taught me, right?
Yeah.
And going back to your point about history, right? It comes from the slave days. And this is when we were taking meats that were rotten, decayed, dirty. They slop on the floors. Here, y'all can eat this, right? And they had to physically wash the meats off, right? And they had to over season them to make sure they can know to smell all that nasty stuff on there, right? And so we have a history of doing that. We have a history of washing the meat and over seasoning. But this comes from back then. So a lot of the things we deal with now, it comes from our ancestors.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's important to really understand where we come from to know where we're going. Right. All that stuff is related to it all connects.
Yeah.
And so that's really what we look at now, is how we're able to figure out where we come from, what comes with it, what do we have to unpack before we can get to building the right kind of savings habits, building the right kind of investment habits, being financially secure, and planning your vacations and going on your retirement, doing things you should be doing, being a homeowner, right?
Yeah.
Being a business owner. All these things can be, they're possible, but we have to unpack a lot of baggage before we can get to that point.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's powerful. Man, that makes a lot, and that a lot of it's inherent. You inherit a lot of that energy and a lot of that mental, what is it called? Trauma.
Yeah.
You know, and so what are some of the ways that you learned to maybe reverse them for not only yourself, but other people you work with?
Man, it has to be small, incremental steps there. I mean, honestly, that's the one thing I've learned, is just being small and consistent.
Okay.
Make it simple, make it easy. And so the program I'm working on now, it's going to help you, like I said, build savings, but it's also going to help you be emotionally sober with your money. Okay.
And so what you mean by that, emotionally sober?
So with us in our community, we're always trying to overcompensate when we have money, right? We're always trying to catch up or keep up with the Joneses. And, you know what I'm saying? We're always wanting for ourselves or our loved ones there. So when we do get some money in our hand, we got to blow it to be like, hey, look, remember that time I couldn't get this for you? Let me get it for you now. Yeah. Right. When we do that, we're spending our money. Mostly we're not thinking properly. We're not thinking logically, right? We're thinking with emotion. We're trying to still catch up and make it for that time we lost. So make it for the opportunity we lost back then. And so that puts us in a hole further, because now we have an opportunity to move a little bit forward, or at least make ourselves whole 100%. Yeah. And we don't take it, right? We go in and take care of ourselves, you know, from that emotional factor and emotional level. Yeah. And so what I mean by being emotionally sober there is making sure we're working on small goals. When we have that surplus that comes in, now we're going to focus on, okay, can we save a day's worth of your income? Okay. Right. If you bring in $3,000 a month, that's $100 a day. Right.
Save that every month. Huh?
Can we save that to start? Right. Okay. If we can save 1 day's worth of income, can we do it for 21 days now? And the reason why I say 21 days, anytime you want to set a new habit, you have to do this same thing for 21 days in a row. You do it for 21 days in a row, the new habit kicks in and you're now subconsciously locked into it. And so what we work on is small positive habits that we can do for a long period of time that's not too difficult. Okay. And build off of that. And so doing $100 a day is not feasible right now as it stands for most folks. I'm not saying doing that. What I am saying is to do something positive, a positive change. It could be something as drinking a glass of water, you know, once a day. If you drink all pop, I know my sister, she drinks pop nonstop, Pepsi. Yeah. If you can switch that to, you know, 1 glass of water, 2 glasses of water, you know, 4 glasses of water per day for 21 days. Okay. That'll set the new habit, right? Yeah. Same thing with finances, with time, relationship, with your careers, whatever the case may be. Doing something positive there is kind of what the focus is now. And so that's how we're kind of addressing it there on a small level. Yeah. But then it's really also talking to that individual, finding out what makes them tick, how they feel, and really learning about their money scripts, right? Learning about their upbringing. And when I say money scripts, I'm talking about there's psychological factors in our upbringing and our parenting and our grandparents' parents that passed down to us. All these things they impact us in a way we don't really know or notice. And we don't really notice things until we actually talk to a professional about it. Yeah. And so when we start to unpack these things there, now we have a chance to really figure out, okay, this is why I do this. Yeah. Right. And that's huge for our community, because we just don't know a lot of things with mental health as it is. Yeah. And so to dive into that, we have to dive into history, mental health, finance, like it's a lot to dig into, right? Yeah. But I don't want to get into too deep there, but we have a lot of things we have to unpack that way there, but there's levels and ways we can go about doing it, but that's one way. Okay, cool. And so as far as people building their credit, right? And so there's a lot of different ways people can kind of go about that. You know, like I know I have a lot of family members that's been impacted credit wise. You know, so what are steps, you know, maybe for a beginner to build their credit up? And then also we'll talk a little bit on the tail end, a few gems for people that have great credit and want to leverage that. Yeah. So if they're a beginner, what I would say is most large institutions will give you some sort of, credit card to get you started, right? So at Chase, for example, we do the Freedom Card or the Freedom Flex or something like that. One of our standard credit cards there. If you don't have any credit history, you have a job, 18, 19, 20 years old, you get like, $500 on average to kind of start.
Yeah.
There's one way. It depends on how far you're into the process of credit building. So if you have credit before, but it's not that great, you could go the route of a secured credit card. And a secured credit card there, it allows you to build your credit and work on it and repair it. Right?
Yeah.
So it just depends on what level you're starting off with there. But if you're just flat out beginning there, most institutions will give you a small line of credit to see what kind of person you are with your money, right? Not a lot, but that will let you go ahead and cover yourself there. So the one thing I do want to stress out though with this here is there's several rules when it comes to credit management and building credit. Whenever you do if you do get approved for a credit card, keep your balance under 30%.
Okay.
So if you're at $500, keep it under 150. Okay. Doing that allows them to see you're able to manage it, pay it off daily if you spend all your money. You go through a full day of expenses on your credit card there, pay it off at night or pay it off at the end of the week or pay it off when you get paid.
Okay. Don't
let it go into the next month. Okay. The goal is to not pay interest. I had this one guy, he's from Pennsylvania. He moved to Arizona and then moved to Iowa there. He came into my office, he was pissed. He was like, I need y'all to figure out why I got these charges on my credit card. And I'm looking at his card. It was two interest payments.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, it looks like you have $12 of interest, sir. It's interest. The hell is that? And it was unbeknownst to him, this guy there, that credit card company is charged interest, right? He's been paying his credit card off every single month for 25 years. And so he didn't know they actually charged interest because he hasn't paid interest. So what happened was when he moved from Arizona to Iowa, his mail got lost, he didn't get his statement, and he missed the payment. And so from there, it was like, it just dawned on him like, wow, they actually do charge interest for these things. So yes, they do charge interest.
Yeah.
But if you pay it off every single month, you're not going to pay interest.
Yeah.
Right. You can float your expenses, you can float your bills, but you have to be strategic and smart with it to where you're not overspending or going beyond your budget.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're doing that and paying your expenses off there at the end of the month there, credit can be your best friend.
Yeah.
It can be your best friend. It can also be your worst enemy.
And that where the leverage part comes in, huh?
Exactly.
And so for people trying to leverage it, what are like some things that you feel like that helps when it comes to leveraging it?
It depends on what they're trying to do. But a lot of them may use it for,
let's say starting a business.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're doing this for a business, for example, or if you're high net worth and you have assets there, it's a little bit more flexible. What banks will do though, especially if you're a startup business there, some banks will work with you, some of them won't. Depends on how long you've been in the game and your revenue and things like that. There's a whole different checklist that comes with that.
Okay.
But if you're trying to, let's say, float your payroll expenses there, business credit is so important to establish earlier on. Now you can actually have some management there and flexibility when it comes to paying your staff, right? Or if you're a startup. You know what I'm saying? Because now you can float your expenses from this invoice here until you get financed and paid, 2 months down the road. And so just being mindful there of how the credit can help your business take care of expenses later on you can't afford right now, right? I had this one lady who came in and she's doing invoices from Hy-Vee and they're so late in paying their bills that if we gave her this business loan there, she can float all of her expenses until her paychecks comes there to cover all of her expenses right now with her machinery. Right. And so it allows you to have that flexibility because you have, with you being acknowledged as a business, banks know you're going to have some variation when it comes to your bills.
Yeah.
Right.
Facts.
It's not going to be the same thing every single time. They'll have some ups and some downs here and there with your expenses there, but banks will work with you and be more flexible with your payment dates, your due dates, your limits, and how your expenses goes.
Yeah.
And as long as you're still paying everything when the bill comes due there, you'll be straight.
Okay, cool. That's dope, bro. That's dope. And so as far as the relationship between like for you knowing your history as far as your story and everything like that, can you tell a little bit about how you kind of like, you knowing your history, how are you applying that to your own life? Like whether it's like inspiring your kids, moving forward for your own self and getting to reaching your goals. So how are you kind of applying like what you learned throughout history as far as not only finances, but just Black history to kind of boost you forward?
Most definitely. I mean, man, it's a tough question because you have to be vulnerable with it, right?
Yeah.
So what I've done in the last, I'd say 1.5, 2 years, I've worked my mental health quite a bit because I realize there's a lot from my childhood I have to unpack. I have to reparent myself. Right?
That's powerful.
And it's not saying my parents did a bad job. It's saying that my parents did the best they could with what they could at the time.
Yeah.
And so acknowledging that there's a lot of things that I shouldn't have learned at a younger age that I was exposed to, and having to correct some of these things and, you know, make sense of everything there when I was younger. And like I said, reparenting yourself to what is right now and what's correct now so you can lead your children the right way.
Yeah.
All that comes together there where you're trying to make sure you're not leading your kids astray. Because I have 5 kids. And so I have to make sure when I'm making a decision, it's not something that, you know, my parents taught me. Yeah. And like I said, my parents taught me a lot of great things. But I have to make sure I'm vetting the information and the thought in my head. That I read it somewhere that your inner monologue is actually just your parents' early lessons that was beaten to you.
That's powerful. Yeah. Right? That's facts though.
And you think about like, dang, is that really the case? Because I had to think about like, man, yeah, I could see that. I could see that happening because a lot of the things that I critique myself on are things I heard from my parents when I was younger. Right. And things that may not be applicable to this day. Yeah. And so a lot of that comes from realizing, is this your parents talking or is this yourself? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so for my kids now, I realize where I could have done better when it comes to saving, investing, spending. And with Black folks especially, we need to talk about money with our kids, right? It's usually an embarrassing topic or a topic we don't want to touch. We usually don't have it. Yeah. We don't have the money or we don't understand the money. And so talking about money with our kids there is usually taboo. But you need to talk to it about them because they're the next generation. If you do not prepare your kids for money and finances, if they're not equipped financially when they're 18, they shouldn't be kicked out of the house. They shouldn't be kicked out, right? Yeah. That's one thing that you always hear, like, when you're 18, you're gone, right? Nah.
That's not cool, yeah.
They have to be prepared. You got to talk to, if you don't know how to talk to them about the money there, at least expose them to someone who does.
Yeah. And to add on to it, I'm 25, y'all. I'm just about to leave the crib in 2 weeks. Hey. So it's like, look, ain't nothing wrong with that, man. It takes time, y'all. So like, really be smart. Like if I never stayed at home for these past 1.5, 2 years, I would not, my business wouldn't be where it is. I would have never learned as much as I did. So do not feel bad for staying at the crib. All right. But then also when you're staying at the crib, there's limits, right? You can't just have women running through or men.
Be respectful. Right?
Yeah. You got to be respectful of that. But then also too, you got to help provide for the family that's there. Bring something to the table. That's any relationship, anything, any situation. Always bring something to the table because if you don't, you're not valuable.
Absolutely.
So I just had to throw that out there. But no, I agree 100%. With you 100% on that, bro. Yeah. For real. And so, man, I'm going to ask you a few more questions and we'll dive into some details. But we're going to take a quick little break. We'll be back.
What's good, y'all? It's Mikal Settle with Blaise Training Never Settle. Now, listen, I want you to stay tuned for this new ebook we got coming out. It's going to be fire. Great efficient workouts, whether it's the home workouts or the gym workouts. So stay tuned. Enjoy the rest of the show. Peace.
Man, what's good, y'all? Hope you enjoyed that great ad. Make sure y'all check out if you're interested in doing some training or anything like that, online fitness and all that. Make sure you tap in, comment down below, or just directly hit me up. We'll get you right. And so, man, Marlon, and so we've been talking about you've been giving some heavy gems. And so
appreciate that, bro.
One thing I like to always do though is each episode I give the guests a gift, you know. I give the guests a gift. And so for you, I give you this Mike Motivation Monday shirt.
Thank you.
This is only for the people who, you know, do the interview. So that's for you.
That's
and
love,
then
bro. I appreciate you, man.
This applies to the conversation, you know. And so this is yours, Surviving Debt. Right here. Yeah.
That's dope,
Yeah,
bro.
thank you. Yeah,
No, thank you. I
I'm glad
appreciate
you
that,
like it.
man.
Yep, of course.
Appreciate you,
And so
King.
that applies to the conversation here. I'll put it away for you. We get to you at the end, but man, I feel like it applies to the conversation and everything
Absolutely.
like that. So I hope you enjoy this, and we're for sure gonna have more conversations about stuff. And so to kind of dive into things like when it comes to, you said something about the mindset, as far as you had to kind of like do a lot of like mental development and like really inner search. I feel like kind of you were saying. And so what are some of the ways you was able to go back and, I think you said almost reparent yourself.
Yep.
So what are some of the ways you was able to go back and develop a new Marlon?
Yeah. One part of that was really difficult was reestablishing relationship lines with my folks, right?
Okay.
So with my dad, for example, I had to call him, ask him questions about his dad, how their relationship was. And it made a lot of sense for how he treated me, right?
Okay.
He wasn't a bad dad by any means, but he didn't know how to love. You know what I'm saying? It was only because his father hadn't shown him love.
Yeah.
And so in that aspect there, I now have to be intentional that I do show my son that love is capable, being vulnerable is okay, being transparent is okay. And show him that this is things that we can do as Black men. Like we can still be for each other, mentally and emotionally. Because a lot of things that I think that generation learned is that as long as you're taking care of the bills, the house, you straight. That's it.
Yeah.
Right. That's not the case.
And what generation is this? 80s, 70s?
He was born 59. So I guess, boomers.
Okay.
Yeah. And so pretty much, I think a lot of them just didn't dive into, what troubled them, what some of their problems and issues were. And we have to kind of deal with that.
Okay.
We got to deal with that and unpack that. And he still didn't want to talk about it as much, but I'm okay with that. I understand that on my end there, I did all I could on my part, right?
Yeah.
And so now I'm trying to be transparent with my children, be honest with them, and talk to them when they have situations going on, right? Talk to them when they feel they had a bad day. Well, what happened today, right? How can I help you? Did you want to kind of talk the best with somebody else, right? And I'm open to therapy, right?
Yeah.
Be open to therapy and be open to Black therapy, I should specify. Because Black therapists are more in tune with the culture and they're more, adaptable to your situation because they understand things a bit more.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
That's why it's really important being in a city to where there is a strong Black culture because they understand things that don't have to be said.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
that's facts.
And there's certain things that you have to explain to, I'm saying a white therapist, be honest. And it's not knocking anybody, but certain things you have to explain about the culture because they just may not understand, may not connect.
Yeah.
And so things like that just don't have to be said and it's automatically communicated there, which makes things easier and makes things comfortable, right?
100%.
And if you're not comfortable with a therapist, then you know what I'm saying?
You
What's
really
the point?
can't vent.
Exactly.
That's facts. And that's where positive representation is important.
Yeah.
It's just like when I seen you at the networking event, TSB. It was cool. Like, hey, what's up?
And when I first pulled up there, I was like, because the room didn't look like it was representing TSB, but I was like, okay, we're going to figure it out.
No, that's fact. It's crazy, bro. You say that, like, literally the first thing I said, because I was with my bro, I was like, dang, I don't know. We don't look like we ain't got no Black people in here.
Right.
And then I seen one, I'm like, oh, they're going right there. There's one right there. I said, oh, we good.
Right.
We good. But it's like, it just brings a certain comfort level. You know?
It's community.
It's community. Yeah. And it's important. And it's the same for other communities, you know? And so like, dang, we gonna chop it up about a lot more stuff. And so there's a lot of other stuff that just popped up in my head. But to kind of like, to, wrap things up, when you hear Never Settle, what comes to mind?
Man, I think of progression. I think of the work that I did 6 months ago is not as good as it is now. And the work 6 months from now would not be as good as it is then, right?
Yeah.
What I'm doing now. So
100%.
I think of just always working on yourself, never being complacent because there's always room to grow. And so just staying humble. And honestly, bro, you like one of the most humble bros I've met in my life.
Thank you, bro.
I definitely appreciate you opening this opportunity up for me. And just like I said, just continuing to build on yourself and, be that person that can be a reliable source in the community.
That's powerful. I appreciate the compliment too. That's powerful. That's the thing I feel like people don't really understand is the understanding that where you at now is not the end all be all. No. It's a process.
It's a process.
Y'all gotta embrace the process. Because if you don't, you'll always feel like you're gonna be behind. Because if you at where you at and you got somewhere ahead, like it's okay to reach and keep going, but you gotta embrace the process too. And that's where you get to your goals. You feel me? And so like to end each episode, we kind of go over, I just tell kind of a story. And so to kind of tell a little story, just kind of my background as far as, I kind of usually just tell something that comes to mind, and I try to give it a little more insightful for people to get a good understanding. And so you speaking on your father's situation kind of reminded me of mine. And so to kind of talk about me and my dad are super cool now. Yeah. I love him to death. Love you, Dad. But I love you. But me and his relationship wasn't the best growing up. And so one of the times where I didn't get to see him because originally all my family's from North Carolina, right? And so when my mom she was really young when she had me, and my dad was young, but she moved before I was born from North Carolina. And so with my dad being young, it's going to be tough and they're not together. Right. It's going to be tough for him to kind of move around. And so I kind of understood that when I got older, but as a youngin', I didn't really get it. Right. But then I was born in Texas. And then when I was about 2 or 3, moved to Des Moines. And then I've been here pretty much ever since. But when I was 13, that's when I finally got to see my dad, a time where I seen my dad where I was like, I could recognize him. Yeah. Because when he drove past, I didn't even know it was him. Yeah. My cousin from North Carolina was like, oh, that's your pops. Right. I was like, oh, shoot, that's my dad. So then we was just chopping it up. But then I say all that to say is like, you remind me of something like, he did the best that he could. And so and then as you talk to him about his experience, you understand why he treated you the way he did. Right. And so I say all that to say is for y'all, in order to love yourself truly, you got to let go of that hate for your dad. You got to let go of that hate for your mom. You got to let go of that hate for whoever it is, because if you don't, it's going to eat you up. Yeah. And when I started to let go of that hate and that pain I have towards my pops, it's an evolving thing. When you let that go, you set yourself free. And that's when I started to really blossom, so to speak, and so let go of that hate and move forward. And so Marlon, thank you so much for this. Yes, sir. And we definitely gonna have to do this again, because man, I'm gonna ask you so many more questions, man, for real. And so, man, make sure y'all like and subscribe. And Marlon, tell them how to reach out to you, most definitely, and everything like that. So right now, I'm actually in the process of building the new business. Okay. And so there's no website, no business cards yet, but you can reach me on Facebook for right now. Okay. I'm terrible at social media there, but you can find me. I'm under MJ Ewing. It's Mary Jane, for example, Ewing. Okay. I can reach out there, shoot me a message. We can definitely connect and talk. Yeah. And when the business actually gets running there, we'll definitely connect again. And I'll kind of go through some more stuff with y'all there. But we're just in the infant stage right now. We're building the syllabus, the curriculum, getting our registration stuff done. And so we should be done up and running probably around July or August. Okay. And then by the time we drop these, so I'll be able to put some links in the bio. Yeah. And so, we'll be good. Yeah. That's going to be cool, bro. Yeah, man. And so congratulations on starting that up. Yes, it's already started, y'all. Got to speak it into existence. That's it. It's already started. And so, make sure you have a great week. Stay positive, stay loving, and never settle. Peace and love, y'all.